Hi everyone, welcome back. As of now, we have discussed various assert methods. In this video, let's learn about the types of assertions. There are two types of assertion. First is the hard assertion and second is soft assertion. In this video, let's understand the hard assertion. In previous videos, we have already written few assertions and they come under hard assertion category. So let's look into the more details about hard assertion. @test method will fail immediately when assertion is failed. So let's say you have written few assertion in your test case, and at the time of execution, if any of the assertion is failed, then your test case will be marked as failed. Remaining line of a script of test case does not execute. So let's take an example. You have written a 10 lines of code where at the line number 5 you have written an assertion, and at the time of the execution, if that is failed, then the remaining lines of code will not be executed. So let's see it practically so that you can understand. I'll switch to my Eclipse. So here you can notice this is the code from the previous video. Here I have written multiple assertions. This is the first assertion to check whether all checkbox is selected or not. This is the second assertion to check whether pending approval checkbox is selected or not. And this is the last assertion to check whether search button is enabled or not. So let's say after verifying whether the search button is enabled or not, I want to enter a value into the text box. So let me switch to my browser. So here you can notice there is a text box employee. So let's say I want to enter a value into this text box. So let me right click on this and inspect. So this is the HTML code written for the employee search text box, and here you can notice it has the name attribute value, right? So let's use the name attribute value to identify this element by name locator. So I'll copy the name attribute value. Now I will switch to Eclipse, and here I will write a line of code driver dot find element by dot name. Here I will specify the name attribute value. Now I want to enter a value into the text box, so I'll call a method send keys, and here I will specify the value. So let's say the value is John. Let me put the semicolon at the end. So when I execute this code, Selenium will check all three assertions which have been specified here. If all these assertions are passed, then only Selenium will enter this John value into the text box. So let's take an example. If the assertion is failed at the line number 41, then what will happen? Selenium will stop the execution and these lines of code will not be executed. Let's take another example. If the assertion failed at the line number 47, then Selenium will mark this test case as a fail and these lines of code will not be executed. To conclude, whenever the assertion is failed, Selenium will immediately stop the execution and will not execute the remaining lines of code. Let me execute this code in a happy workflow where all these assertions would be passed and Selenium will enter a value into the text box. After that, I will make the changes in the script to fail one of the assertion, and again we will run it to see whether Selenium is able to enter this value into the text box, right? So first let's run it with the happy workflow. I'll right click in the class, run as TestNG test. Now you can see Selenium has launched the Google Chrome browser. It is opening the login page of Orange HRM application. Selenium has logged into the application. Now it clicked on the leave button, and here you can notice Selenium has entered John value into the employee text box. Selenium has executed the line number 56 to enter a value into the text box because the above assertions have passed. So if I go to the Eclipse console, here I can see this test case is passed. Now intentionally I want to fail one of the assertion and see whether Selenium will continue the execution or not, right? So here at the line number 41, I am checking whether all checkbox is selected or not. And here it is expected it should not be selected because I am using assert false assertion. Now let me replace the assert false with the assert true. When you call this assert true method, then it is expected that value of this variable should be true, right? If the value of this variable is true, then only the assertion is going to pass, otherwise it's going to fail, correct? And I know the by default the checkbox is not selected and the value of this variable would be false. If the value is false, then this assertion is going to fail. Now why I am failing this assertion? Because I want to see what will happen when any of the assertion is failed. So at the time of execution, when this line number 41 is executed, this assertion is going to fail. And once the assertion is failed, Selenium will immediately stop the execution and further lines of code will not be executed. Let's validate it practically. To execute this code, I will right click in the class, run as TestNG test. I'll click on the OK button. Now you can see Selenium has launched the Google Chrome browser. It is opening the login page of Orange HRM application. Selenium entered username, password, clicked on the login button, and now Selenium clicked on the leave button. I'm just waiting whether Selenium will enter the employee name or not, and here you can notice Selenium did not enter the employee name, right? Now let's go to the console, and here you can notice failure 1, which means one test case got failed. Now let's look into the more details about the failure. So here you can notice this test case is marked as failed because one of the assertion got failed, right? Here is the assertion error, right? Expected value is true but found false. And if you want to see on which line the assertion failed, then you can trace it from here. So here you can notice this is the line of code where assertion got failed, right? So let me click on this line number 41, and here assertion got failed, and when the assertion got failed, immediately Selenium stopped the execution and further line of code did not execute. So this is the functionality of hard assert. Whenever the assertion is failed, Selenium will immediately stop the execution and further line of code will not be executed. So let me go back to the presentation. So this is all about the hard assertion. Now let's meet in the next video and discuss what is soft assertion.